3 German citizens have been arrested on suspicion of spying for China. Prosecutors say the 2 men and 1 woman established front companies to obtain research and technology that could be used to help the Chinese Navy. So for more on this story, let's bring in DW's political correspondent, Simon Young. Simon, China now rejecting accusations it carried out spying activities after 3 Germans were arrested. What more can you tell us about this case?
Right, these are 3 German citizens, as you've mentioned. They're accused of gathering details about military technology and passing that to a Chinese clandestine agency. So this was one married couple who are said to have set up a company here in Germany that was basically making contacts with German experts and academics, and also setting up cooperations with German universities. For instance, in one case, they were doing a study on sort of high-performance marine engines that could have a military application. But that data was, in fact, going back to China through the secret services there, and they were financing this operation. You know, the German authorities said, well, no problem. We were aware of it at a pretty early stage. The German government is calling this a big success for their sort of defense mechanisms against espionage. And as you say, the Chinese authorities say that they have got nothing to do with it. They've denied these allegations.
Now, give us a little bit of context here. Is there precedent for something like this in Germany?
I would say that this is a new level for a Chinese-sourced espionage attempt into military technology. This was a concrete plan with a fairly clear sort of narrative of how the thing was structured, and how the information was getting back to China and what sort of information was being targeted. And we've got these 3 arrests. I think that in the past, there's been concern, of course, about China's industrial espionage activities against German car makers and engineering firms and so on. And there's also been a lot of concern about the telecoms firm Huawei and whether data might flow through it back to China. But this is a new kind of case, I think.
Well, Simon, stay with us for just a moment. I'd like to play a clip from our correspondent, Thomas Sparrow, who was able to speak to Germany's domestic intelligence chief, Thomas Haldenwang, about this case.
This case is of particular significance. We are dealing with a case of proliferation which also involves weapons know-how. This case shows that China is also active in Germany and that there are cases of proliferation here. The Federal Office was involved in the investigation at a very early stage. Once the investigation was clear, we were able to hand this case over to the police and the public prosecutor. Further information pertaining to the case will be released by the Federal Public Prosecutor.
And this comes just a few days after 2 people were arrested here in Germany on suspicion of spying for Russia. How great is the threat from Russia to domestic security in Germany?
Yes, we've been aware for many years that Russia is fueling major activities here in Germany. Even before the war in Ukraine, I was talking about a threat similar to that of the Cold War era. This is, of course, intensified even further with Russia's attack on Ukraine. And we have to realise that Russia is engaging in espionage, cyber espionage, influence operations, disinformation, and this toolbox, as we call it, naturally also includes sabotage in extreme cases. We have to reckon with the fact that Russia may have acts of sabotage carried out in Germany.
Simon, tell us more about that. What kinds of acts of sabotage are the Germans worried about from the Russians?
Well, just last week we saw the arrest of two agents here in Germany accused of not just spying for Russia, they were accused of spying on US military bases here, but of planning actual attacks, possibly acts of sabotage, in order to undermine Germany's support for Ukraine in particular. But of course, Russia has also been implicated in many other incidents, from contract killings on the streets of Berlin to attempts to infiltrate political parties, to hack government computer systems, and indeed to disrupt sort of infrastructure such as the power grid. So it's a really different order of activity, I think, from the Russian side compared to what we've seen from the Chinese in part. And interestingly, Thomas Haldenwang also said today that, you know, as he sees it, the Chinese prefer to be more low-key, smooth, as he described it, in their espionage activities. But he still warns that, as he sees it, China is determined to become the global #1 by 2049, politically, militarily and economically. And he says they're ready to use illegal means to do that.
Simon, thank you for that. That is DW's political correspondent, Simon Young.